The winter sun was a pale, brilliant coin in the sky over Seattle, glinting off the rain-slicked streets and the glass towers of the city's tech district. A silver Tesla Model S was parked haphazardly in front of a sleek software giant, its doors open like wings. Its owner paced on the sidewalk, a picture of pure frustration. Eleanor Vance, CEO of Ether Innovations, tapped her foot and clenched her phone. Her tailored coat flapped in the chilly Puget Sound breeze, but her mind was a world away from the calm bay waters. She was surrounded by her top developers, yet none of them could untangle the critical bug blocking their flagship product launch. "It's just one function," she said to the air, her voice tight. "One function, and we miss our global rollout." Her words trembled, not with anger, but with the bone-deep exhaustion of a leader carrying the world on her shoulders. She had built the company from nothing after losing her father and her partner, Mark, in a climbing accident 5 years ago. Now she was raising her daughter, Chloe, alone while trying to prove a woman could dominate the competitive world of AI. Then came a voice, low and raspy, as if from disuse. "I can help you fix it." Eleanor turned sharply and froze. The man before her was tall, his skin pale from lack of sun, with a beard that was unkempt and streaked with gray. His eyes, however, were a sharp, piercing blue, intelligent and intensely focused. His jacket was frayed, his jeans stained and thin at the knees. He clutched a worn backpack to his chest as if it held his last possession. Security moved instantly. "Ma'am, should we escort him away?" "No," Eleanor said, raising a hand. She stared at the man. "What did you say?" "I can help you debug your code," the man repeated, standing his ground. One of the engineers beside Eleanor let out a nervous laugh. "With all due respect, Ms. Vance, even our senior architects couldn't crack it." "I don't think." "Give him the laptop," Eleanor commanded. Silence fell. A ripple of disbelief. "Ma'am." "I said, give him the laptop." A young intern hesitantly obeyed. The stranger sat on the cold concrete steps beside the Tesla, pulled an old laptop from his bag, and booted it up. For a moment, the bustling city faded. The watching guards, the wealthy CEO, none of it mattered. He was lost in the code. His fingers flew across the keyboard like a pianist's, recalling a symphony only he knew. The scrolling green lines on the black screen reflected in his eyes. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Then he stopped. "It's done," he said softly. "You had a memory leak in a recursive function. It was corrupting your data stream. I rewrote it. You can test it now." Eleanor grabbed the laptop. The code compiled perfectly. Every error warning vanished. She gasped. "Who are you?" The man stood slowly, dusting his hands. "My name is Julian. I used to be a lead software architect. I had a family. A wife, Anna, and twin girls. We were happy. I came home every night to hugs and laughter." He paused, the memory a physical weight. "But one day, we were driving back from the lake, a truck, it crossed the center line." Eleanor's eyes softened. Her hands trembled slightly. "I lost them all," Julian continued. "Anna, Emma, Lily, gone. Just like that. After the funeral, I just shut down. I quit my job. Walked away from everything. I ended up in the shelters. I still code, but not for anyone. Just for myself. It's the only thing that reminds me I used to be somebody." Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes, but she blinked them away. She stepped closer. "I'm sorry, Julian. Truly. I lost my father and my partner on the same day. I had just had Chloe. I wanted to give up, but I had to stay for my daughter. That pain. I understand it." Julian looked up. Their eyes locked. Two shattered souls meeting at the precipice of despair. "There's still life, Julian," she said. You're still breathing. That means there's more. I want to help you. He shook his head. Why? Because someone should have helped me when I was at my worst. She turned to her driver. Open the car. Then, to Julian, let's go get you some new clothes. Julian followed her hesitantly. The Tesla's door opened silently, and the scent of clean leather and ambition washed over him. As they pulled away, people on the street stared, some snapping photos with their phones, utterly stunned. They stopped at a boutique in Bellevue. For the first time in over a year, Julian looked in a full-length mirror. He barely recognized the man staring back. They trimmed his beard, cut his hair, and dressed him in a dark gray turtleneck and tailored trousers. Eleanor smiled when he stepped out of the changing room. You look like a founder, she said. Julian chuckled, a small, rusty sound he hadn't heard from himself in years. Next, they drove to the small condo he had abandoned. The building looked the same, but his unit was occupied by strangers. All traces of his past life were gone. It's all gone, he whispered. Eleanor gently placed a hand on his shoulder. Then let's start again. Where? At my home, she replied. In Medina. Julian's jaw dropped. You're serious? I don't make jokes, Eleanor said with a smile. And I'm not done yet. They drove through the security gates of her estate as the evening sun set the sky ablaze over Lake Washington. Her 6-year-old daughter, Chloe, ran out, laughing. Mommy, you're home. She paused, curious, when she saw Julian. Who's that? Eleanor knelt beside her. This is Mr. Julian. He's going to help Mommy build something amazing. Chloe reached out and held Julian's hand. In that simple gesture, something inside him, something long frozen, began to thaw. But just as Julian stepped into the grand foyer, a shadow moved across the street. A figure in a dark hoodie, phone to their ear, whispering, he's with her now. The night air in Medina was crisp and still. Inside Eleanor's home, warm light and gentle laughter spilled from the dining room, where Chloe, seated between Julian and her mother, was animatedly recounting her day at school. I told my teacher that my mommy can fix any computer in the whole world, Chloe declared proudly, and now, Eleanor added, smiling at Julian, she has someone to help her prove it. Julian's eyes glistened. He looked down at his plate, overwhelmed. Thank you, he finally whispered. I don't deserve this. Yes, you do, Eleanor replied softly. We all deserve a second chance. Outside, across the tree-lined street, the watcher observed. The figure in the dark hoodie, now seated in a nondescript sedan, dialed a number. Ma'am, he said lowly, the target, Julian Moss, is inside with Eleanor Vance. There was a silence on the other end, then a cool, female voice responded, good. Keep watching. I knew he wasn't dead. The next morning, Julian woke in a clean, soft bed for the first time in over a year. Sunlight streamed through the large windows. A fresh set of clothes, a simple button-down shirt and trousers, was laid out for him. Downstairs, the house was quiet. Chloe had left for school, and Eleanor sat on the sun-drenched patio, sipping coffee and scrolling through reports on her tablet. You slept well, she asked as Julian stepped outside, looking like a different man, clean-shaven and clear-eyed. I did, he said with a nervous laugh. I feel like I've stepped into someone else's life. Eleanor smiled. Well, keep it. They weren't using it. As they drove to Ether Innovations headquarters, Eleanor pointed out the changes in the city he had withdrawn from. Seattle had continued its relentless evolution, new buildings piercing the sky, a city that moved on even when its people fell behind. I want you to meet the team, she said. They'll probably try to have security toss me out again, Julian replied wryly. Not this time. When they entered the open plan office, heads turned. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Eleanor walked ahead, radiating confidence, while Julian followed, dressed smartly, his old laptop bag slung over his shoulder. Inside the elevator, Eleanor looked at him. "Are you ready?" He nodded. But as the doors opened onto the executive floor, Eleanor's assistant rushed up, her face concerned. "Ms. Vance, I'm sorry to interrupt. There's a woman here demanding to see you. She says it's urgent." Eleanor frowned. "Who is she?" She wouldn't give a name, but she said it's about Julian. Julian froze, his hands clenching. "I think I know who it is." In the minimalist reception area stood a woman in her late 30s, her posture rigid, dressed in an expensive wool coat. Her eyes narrowed the moment they landed on Julian. "So it's true," she said, her voice cold. Eleanor stepped beside him. "Can we help you?" "I'm Clara," the woman replied, folding her arms. "Julian's sister-in-law. My younger sister, Anna, was his wife." Julian inhaled sharply. "Clara, what are you doing here?" "I should be asking you that," she snapped. "You vanished after the burial. You left everything. You refused to even take Anna's things. You abandoned her memory." "I lost everything," he said, his voice quiet. "No," Clara retorted, her voice cracking. "You ran. You didn't even come to the girls' one-year memorial. You let us all believe you were dead, too. We searched for you, Julian. Anna loved you. My nieces adored you. And you just disappeared." Julian was trembling. "I was broken, Clara. So were we," she cried. "But we didn't stop living." She turned to Eleanor, her gaze accusatory. "You think you know him? You don't. He's a coward who let his grief turn him into a ghost." With that, she picked up her purse and walked out, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. Julian stood numb. "She's right," he whispered. "Maybe I don't deserve a second chance." Eleanor reached out and touched his hand. "She's angry. She's grieving. But Julian, listen to me. You were lost, but you found your way back. That's what matters." He looked at her, tears in his eyes. "Do you really believe that?" "I do," Eleanor said. "And I think, deep down, so does she." Later, Eleanor took Julian to the development hub. The team stared as she introduced him. "This is Julian. He's joining the Project Chimera team as a senior consultant." There were murmurs. The same man they had seen as a disheveled stranger was now standing among them as a peer. But once Julian began to speak, dissecting the code architecture and suggesting elegant solutions, their skepticism turned to respect. He spoke their language, but with a fluency and depth they recognized as genius. That evening, as a light rain pattered against the windows in Medina, Eleanor and Julian sat in the living room. Chloe was asleep upstairs, her toy dragon tucked in beside her. "You were brilliant today," Eleanor said. "I felt like myself again," he replied. They sat in a comfortable silence for a moment. Then she asked softly, "Did you ever imagine this would happen?" Julian shook his head. "I thought I would die in that shelter. But you didn't." He turned to look at her, their eyes meeting just as they had that first day. Something gentle and warm passed between them, tentative yet undeniable. But before Julian could speak, Eleanor's phone buzzed on the coffee table. She picked it up, and her expression darkened. Julian leaned forward. "What is it?" Eleanor's eyes met his, a new fear in their depths. "I think someone is trying to sabotage the company." She handed him the phone. A single, anonymous message glowed on the screen. "Your charity project will be your downfall. One misplaced variable and it all comes crashing down. You trusted the wrong man." Julian read the message, his blood running cold. The words seemed to burn through the screen. "They're framing me," he said, his voice hollow. "No," Eleanor said, her voice regaining its steely resolve. "They're trying to make me doubt you. This is a psychological attack. They want fear and confusion. But who would do this? Julian asked, the face of his sister-in-law flashing in his mind. That's what we're going to find out, Eleanor stated, standing up. But we don't fight this with panic. We fight with strategy. The next morning, Eleanor convened an emergency meeting with her cybersecurity team. Julian sat beside her in the glass-walled conference room, feeling the weight of every suspicious glance. The lead engineer, a young woman named Maya, pulled up the system logs for Project Chimera. We found something, Maya said, her brow furrowed. There's an injected script in a deprecated module. It doesn't match any commit in our version control. It's almost as if someone slipped it in through a backdoor. It's designed to look like a standard utility, another engineer added. But once deployed, it would create a cascade failure in the data core. Julian leaned forward. Can I see the syntax? The engineers hesitated, but Eleanor gave a firm nod. Let him. Julian's eyes scanned the lines of code, his mind parsing the malicious logic. There, hidden within a seemingly benign function, was a recursive loop that would overwrite critical user data. He looked up, his face grim. This wasn't an accident. This was planted by someone with intimate knowledge of your system's architecture. A tense silence filled the room. Only a handful of people have this level of access, Maya finally said. Eleanor's jaw tightened. I want a full audit. Every login, every access log, every line of code changed in the last month. I want to know who did this. Across town, in a dimly lit apartment overlooking the city, a man sat hunched over a bank of monitors, their blue glow illuminating his face. On one screen was a live feed from a traffic camera near Eleanor's Medina home. A woman paced behind him, Clara. He's rebuilding his life inside her company, Clara said, her voice cold. The man, a private investigator named Leo, glanced back. You said he was broken. He was, Clara snapped. But that woman, Eleanor, she's fixing him. She's giving him everything he walked away from while my sister and nieces are in the ground. Her eyes narrowed. I don't want him gone. I want him to remember that his new happiness cost us everything. I want him to suffer. Back at Ether Innovations, Julian worked with a quiet, intense focus. Eleanor had offered him the day off, but he refused. He needed to prove his loyalty, not just to her, but to himself. It was mid-afternoon when the fire alarms blared through the building. Red lights flashed, and an automated voice repeated, "Emergency evacuation protocol activated. Proceed to the nearest exit." Employees streamed into the stairwells. Eleanor emerged from her office. What now? Julian checked a status monitor on the wall. There's no fire, he said quickly. This was triggered remotely. Another attack. They evacuated with the staff into the plaza. But as Julian scanned the crowd of shivering employees, he saw a familiar figure standing by the edge of the square, Clara, her arms crossed, watching him. Their eyes met for a split second before she turned and melted into the foot traffic. Julian didn't think. He pushed through the crowd, ignoring Eleanor's call behind him. Clara. Wait. He caught up to her at the corner. What are you doing? He demanded, grabbing her arm. She wrenched it away. What do you think, Julian? I came to see how far you've fallen, and how quickly you're climbing back up on her money. Why are you doing this? What do you want from me? I want you to feel the weight I carry, she shouted, her composure shattering. You think you're the only one who lost everything? I lost them too. But I stayed. I picked up the pieces. And you? You ran. I broke. Julian shouted back, the raw pain surging to the surface. I lost myself. Clara's voice dropped to a venomous whisper. And now you're Eleanor Vance's pet project. Her little redemption story. Just wait, Julian. One day she'll wake up and see you for the coward you are, and she'll regret ever saving you. She walked away, leaving him standing on the rainy sidewalk, torn in two. That evening, Eleanor ordered pizza. The kitchen was warm and smelled of cheese and basil. Chloe chattered away, but Julian was silent, pushing a slice around his plate. "Did you see her again?" Eleanor asked gently. He nodded. "Clara. Is she the one behind the threats?" "I don't know," Julian said, his voice heavy. "But she wants to punish me. She blames me for surviving." "You can't live in that blame forever, Julian," Eleanor said, moving to sit beside him. "You were in pain. You're still healing." "What if she's right?" he whispered, finally looking at her. "What if I don't deserve this peace?" Eleanor leaned in, her eyes soft but unwavering. "You don't earn peace, Julian. You accept it when it finally finds you." Their eyes locked, and the unspoken thing between them grew, a fragile, hopeful thing in the shadow of the past. Then, Eleanor's phone buzzed. This time, it wasn't a text, but a video file. She played it. It was grainy, time-stamped from the night before, showing Julian alone in her home office, sitting at her computer. The video was cleverly edited to make it look like he was typing the very malicious code they had found. Eleanor's face went pale. "Julian, this isn't real, is it?" He stared at the screen, horrified. "No. I would never, Eleanor, this is a fake. Someone is framing me." Olivia looked up, her heart hammering. But who would go this far? As if in answer, a new message appeared. "Fire him by 9 a.m. tomorrow, or this video goes public. Your board will see you've compromised the entire company." The office the next morning was shrouded in a tense, unnatural quiet. Eleanor sat behind her reclaimed wood desk, the fake video playing on a loop in her mind. She had watched it a dozen times, analyzing every pixel. The editing was sophisticated, but to her eye, an eye that had come to know the subtle nuances of his posture, the way he held his head when he was thinking, there was a disconnect. The Julian in the video moved with a cold, clinical efficiency. The real Julian was all nervous energy and quiet intensity. Still, the seed of doubt had been sown, not in her heart, but in the practical, corporate world she inhabited. What if the board saw it? What if her investors saw it? Julian entered her office slowly. He could feel the shift in the atmosphere, a new, invisible wall between them. "You called for me," he said, his voice cautious. Eleanor closed her laptop with a definitive click. "Yes. The anonymous threats have escalated. They've given an ultimatum. And they're pointing at me," Julian finished, his shoulders slumping. "They are. The board is demanding action. I've shielded you so far, Julian, but they're initiating an emergency review. They believe you orchestrated this entire situation to gain access and sabotage us." His chest tightened, making it hard to breathe. "Do you believe that?" Eleanor looked at him, her gaze searching his face for a long, painful moment. Then, softly, she said, "No. I don't. But if we don't prove who is truly behind this, and soon, they won't just fire you. They'll fire me for gross negligence." The silence that followed was heavy with the stakes. Then, Julian straightened his shoulders, a new light of determination in his eyes. "Give me 48 hours. "What?" "Give me 2 days. I'll find the source of the code injection. I'll trace the digital fingerprints. I know what to look for. Please, Eleanor. Let me prove it." She studied him, the man who had been broken by the world and was now fighting to protect the small piece of it he had reclaimed. Slowly, she nodded. "You have 48 hours. After that, my hands are tied." Julian went straight to the server room, a sterile, humming space that felt like the heart of the company. He logged into a secure, isolated terminal. No network access, no distractions. Just him and the raw, unforgiving truth of the code. He combed through system logs, version histories, and metadata timestamps. Hours melted away. He forgot to eat, to drink, his world narrowing to the scrolling lines of text. And then, he found it. A script, cleverly hidden inside a dormant archive folder labeled legacy_test_modules. It contained a piece of code with a metadata timestamp that had been artificially backdated. But the digital signature embedded in the compiler logs was recent, and it belonged to a specific user ID. Only one person on the senior team had the access and the expertise to pull this off, David Chen, Eleanor's head of platform architecture, the same man who had scoffed at Julian's offer of help on the street. That evening, Eleanor and Julian confronted David in his office. The moment Julian presented the printed logs and the irrefutable digital evidence, David's face lost all its color. This is a setup," he stammered, his voice rising. "Someone must have hacked my credentials. Your secure key was hard-coded into the script's activation protocol, David," Julian stated calmly, his voice devoid of malice. "It's cryptographically signed to your ID. Only you could have executed this." David's defiance crumbled. He looked from Julian's resolute face to Eleanor's disappointed one. "Because you made him the star," he burst out, pointing a shaking finger at Julian. "I've been here for 7 years. I built the core architecture of this company. Then this wreck shows up off the street and you hand him the keys to the kingdom. You give him your trust, your home, you look at him like he's a hero." Eleanor's expression was one of profound sadness. "So you tried to destroy everything we've built to get rid of him?" "I just wanted things to go back to the way they were," David muttered, slumping into his chair. Security was called. As they escorted a defeated David from the building, Eleanor leaned against the doorframe, looking drained. "I promoted him last year," she whispered. "I never imagined." Julian stepped closer. "You believed in me. Even when the evidence seemed to say otherwise." She looked up at him, tears shimmering in her eyes. "I did. But for a moment, I was terrified. Not just for the company, but for Chloe, for me." Julian nodded, understanding. He paused, the emotion of the past days welling up inside him. "Eleanor," he began, his voice thick, "you saved me. I was a ghost. I had given up on life, but you pulled me back into the light, piece by piece." She looked at him, and in that look, all the unspoken words between them finally found voice. He reached for her hand. She let him take it, her fingers lacing with his. Just then, Chloe's voice echoed down the hallway. "Mommy. Mr. Julian. Are you okay?" Eleanor smiled, wiping a tear from her cheek. "We're okay, sweetheart." Chloe ran in, clutching a crayon drawing. "I made this for you," she said, handing it to Julian. It was a picture of the three of them, standing under a large, smiling sun, holding hands. Julian took it with both hands, his own hands trembling slightly as he stared at the simple, profound gift. "I never thought I'd have this again," he whispered, his heart cracking open and filling with a light he thought had been extinguished forever.